Chicago, 1890. The newspapers call it the gem of the prairie. The politicians call it the future of America. The rats just call it home. You want to know what progress smells like? Stand on the corner of State and Madison at high noon and take a deep breath. That's not morning mist rolling off Lake Michigan. That's coal smoke mixed with horse manure mixed with the collective output of 1 million people who think a wooden outhouse is cutting-edge technology. Welcome to America's filthiest city. We're very proud. The city fathers love to brag about the numbers. 1.1 million people. Fastest growing metropolis in the nation. The Chicago Miracle. What they don't mention is that they built this miracle on top of a swamp with absolutely no plan for where all the shit goes. Spoiler alert, it doesn't go anywhere. It just accumulates. Let's talk about the streets. Actually, let's talk about what the city calls streets. In most of Chicago, street is a generous term for open sewer with delusions of grandeur. The surface is a mixture of mud, manure, ash, garbage, and decomposed organic matter that has been compressed by wagon wheels into something resembling pavement. Resembling, not actually being. During heavy rain, these streets become rivers. Rivers of filth. You can watch chamber pots worth of human waste flow downhill like some kind of medieval aqueduct system designed by a committee of drunk Romans. The city employs 11 garbage collectors. 11 for 1.1 million people. To be fair, they're very dedicated. Very hardworking. They're also completely fucking useless because the math doesn't work. That's 100,000 people per collector. Even if they worked 24/7, even if they never slept, never ate, never stopped moving, they couldn't make a dent. So they don't really try. Most of the garbage just stays where it lands. Piles up. Becomes part of the architecture. There are neighborhoods on the south side where the street level has risen 4 feet in a decade. Not from construction, not from urban development, from compressed trash acting as landfill. The city is literally building itself on top of its own waste. It's like a layer cake made of horse shit and broken dreams. Archaeologists are going to have a field day with this place in 100 years. Now let's discuss the Chicago River. You know, the river that the city reversed in 1871? Brilliant engineering, really. See, the river used to flow into Lake Michigan, which is where Chicago gets its drinking water. And since everyone was dumping sewage into the river, people kept dying of cholera. Real inconvenient. So the city engineers said, "Hey, what if we just made the river flow backwards?" And everyone said, "That's insane." And they did it anyway. Now the river flows away from the lake, carrying all of Chicago's sewage, industrial waste, and dead animals toward the Illinois River. Problem solved. Except the river moves at 0.3 miles per hour during summer. That's slower than you walk. Slow enough that everything floats. Corpses. Chemical waste. Bloated horse carcasses. Just bobbing along like the world's most disgusting parade. You can smell it from a mile away. It's a smell that has texture. It gets in your throat, coats your tongue. You taste it for hours. The river downstream from the stockyards runs red during peak slaughter season. Not brown, not dark. Red. The kind of red that makes you check to see if the apocalypse started and nobody told you. 11 million gallons of blood, offal, and industrial meatpacking waste flowing into the river every single day. No filtration, no processing, just straight dumping. The fish died instantly. The entire ecosystem collapsed. The river is biologically dead for 15 miles. Nothing lives there. Not plants, not insects, not even bacteria, probably. It's just a flowing toilet carrying Chicago's waste to someone else's backyard. Joliet, 40 miles downstream, saw their typhoid rates spike by 340% the next year. Chicago's official response, not our problem. Let's talk density. Chicago's tenement districts pack in 18,452 people per square mile. That's denser than modern Manhattan. Except Manhattan has elevators and building codes and a sewage system that wasn't designed by throwing darts at a map. Chicago has outhouses. 1 outhouse per 31 people. And that's the average. Some buildings have it worse. The pits are supposed to be emptied monthly by night soil men. Supposed to be. But the city pays 6 cents per pit and most landlords decide that's too expensive, so they just let them overflow. When a pit fills completely, they don't empty it. They board it up and dig a new one 3 feet away. Some tenement blocks have 14 abandoned shit pits underneath them. The ground is saturated. The waste seeps into the water table, into the wells, into the pumps. Congratulations. You're drinking your neighbor's diarrhea, aged to perfection. The typhoid mortality rate in Chicago is 174 deaths per 100,000 people. That's triple New York's rate, quadruple London's. The city health department commissioned a study. Know what they concluded? They blamed ethnic hygiene practices. Specifically, they blamed the Irish, and the Poles, and the Italians, and basically anyone who wasn't a wealthy Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Because clearly the problem isn't the lack of sewage infrastructure. It's that immigrants don't understand cleanliness. Never mind that the rich neighborhoods with actual plumbing have 0 typhoid cases. That's just a coincidence. Here's the beautiful irony. Chicago is booming. Economically, it's a rocket ship strapped to a money printer. Meatpacking, steel, railroads. The city is printing millionaires like they're going out of style. Potter Palmer builds a mansion on Lakeshore Drive for $250,000. Marble floors imported from Italy. French chandeliers. A bathroom with gold fixtures and running water piped from a private filtration system. His toilet is nicer than most people's entire homes. 15 blocks south, families of 8 share a single room with no windows and a toilet that's literally a hole in the floor draining directly into the alley. The city council meets to discuss the poverty problem. They debate, they argue, they form a committee to study the issue. The committee's conclusion: poor people are poor because they're lazy. Mystery solved. Meeting adjourned. Time for lunch. Let's talk about the stockyards, the Union stockyards, the beating heart of Chicago's economy. The place where America's meat gets made. Also the place where Chicago's river gets turned into a biological weapon. The smell reaches you a mile before you see the buildings. It's not just the smell of blood. It's everything. Intestines rotting in piles 10 feet high. Hides curing in vats of chemicals that would melt your skin. Bone dust hanging in the air like fog. You breathe it. You taste it. It coats your lungs. The workers do 12-hour shifts in this. 6 days a week. Killing floor. Gutting stations. Chemical vats. The knife handles are slippery with blood that never fully washes off. The machinery has no safety guards. You slip, you lose a hand. You complain, you lose your job. And it's all completely legal. No labor laws, no workplace safety standards, no workers' compensation. You die on the job, your family gets nothing. Not a pension, not a handshake, not even a sorry for your loss. The companies don't even pay for the burial. Philip Armour, owner of Armour & Company, makes $10 million a year. That's $1890. He lives in a mansion with 16 bedrooms. He donates to orphanages, builds a technical school for poor boys. The newspapers call him a philanthropist, a captain of industry, a self-made man. Meanwhile, workers in his plants are getting their fingers chewed off by machinery and being tossed into the street when they can't work anymore. But hey, he donated to an orphanage, so it evens out. The street vendors are selling sausages wrapped in newspaper. The newspaper has been sitting on a counter next to a bucket of rancid fat. There's grease on the headlines. Nobody cares. 5 cents gets you dinner for 3. What's in the sausages? Nobody knows. Could be pork, could be beef, could be rat. Could be the guy who fell into the rendering vat last Tuesday. The factories don't label anything. No ingredients lists, no quality control, no health inspections. You eat it and hope for the best. Spoiler, the best doesn't usually happen. Child mortality in Chicago's tenement districts is 40%. 4 out of every 10 children born don't make it to age 5. They die of dysentery, of typhoid, of cholera, of tuberculosis, of malnutrition, of infections that would be treatable if their parents could afford a doctor. A doctor visit costs 50 cents. Most workers make 6 cents an hour. Do the math. The rich kids in the Gold Coast have private physicians. They drink filtered water. They eat food that hasn't been sitting next to a dead cat. Their mortality rate is 3%. The city health department looks at these statistics and concludes that poor children are weak, genetically inferior, Natural selection in action. They publish this conclusion in a report, with charts. Let's talk about water. The thing you need to not die. Chicago has pumps scattered throughout the city. Public pumps. Free water for everyone. Very democratic, very progressive. The water comes out brown, always brown. Sometimes it's light brown, sometimes it's dark brown. On special occasions, it's brown with chunks. People let it settle in buckets, the sediment sinks. The top half looks clearish, clear enough. They drink it, and then they shit water for 3 days straight and wonder what went wrong. The city knows the water is contaminated. They have the data. They've done the studies. They understand exactly what's causing the typhoid outbreaks. And they've decided that fixing it costs too much. A functional sewage system would run about $12 million. That's $12 million that could be spent on streetcars, on hotels, on preparing for the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893. The city council votes. The sewers lose. The fair wins. Priorities. Because nothing says advanced civilization like hosting an international exposition while your citizens drink shit water. And they do host the fair. 1893. The World's Columbian Exposition. The White City. A temporary paradise of gleaming white buildings, electric lights, and carefully manicured gardens. Built to show the world how advanced and civilized Chicago has become. They build it 6 miles south of the slums, far enough that visitors don't smell the stockyards, don't see the tenements, don't accidentally step in rivers of sewage. 27 million people visit. They marvel at the exhibitions. They ride the first Ferris wheel. They eat at fancy restaurants and buy souvenirs and go home thinking Chicago is the city of the future. 6 miles north, children are dying of typhoid. The fair runs for 6 months. It closes. The buildings are dismantled. The White City disappears like it never existed. The slums remain. The sewage remains. The death rate remains. But hey, we got some great publicity. Winter comes, snow falls on Chicago. For a brief moment, the city looks almost beautiful. The snow covers the garbage piles, hides the stains, blankets the dead horses. Everything looks clean and white and pure, and then people start walking through it, turning it gray, then brown, then black. By morning, it's just more slush mixed with horse shit. The city keeps growing, keeps building, keeps printing money. The millionaires get richer. The factories get bigger. The population keeps climbing. And beneath it all, the foundation is literally made of compressed garbage and human waste. But we call it progress. We call it the American dream. We call it the gem of the prairie. The rats don't call it anything. They just eat and breed and thrive in the waste. They're the only ones who really understand what Chicago is. End word count, 2,056. Continuation to reach 3,000 words. Let's talk about what happens when you get sick in Chicago. Because you will get sick. It's not a question of if. It's a question of when and how bad. You wake up with a fever, chills. Your stomach is a clenched fist. You've been shitting water for 2 days. You're dehydrated, dizzy. Your heart is doing things hearts shouldn't do. Can you afford a doctor? No. Can you afford to miss work? Also no. So you drag yourself to the factory. You work your shift. You vomit into a bucket. You keep working. Because if you go home, you don't get paid. And if you don't get paid, your family doesn't eat. The guy next to you on the line has the same symptoms. So does the guy across from you. Half the floor is sick. Nobody stops working. And this is how epidemics spread. The city's official health policy is essentially hope for the best. They have a health department. They have inspectors. They have regulations written down in books somewhere. They don't enforce any of it. Why? Because enforcement costs money. Because it would upset the factory owners. Because the aldermen are getting kickbacks from the slumlords who don't want to install plumbing. It's not incompetence. It's not ignorance. It's a choice. A calculated decision that poor people dying is acceptable collateral damage in the pursuit of profit. They don't say it out loud, but they don't have to. The numbers say it for them. Let me tell you about the rendering plants. These are the facilities that take all the parts of the animal that can't be sold as meat and turn them into other products. Soap, glue, Fertilizer, whatever they can squeeze a profit out of. The smell is beyond description. It's not a smell you experience with your nose. It's a smell you experience with your entire body. It gets in your pores, soaks into your clothes. You can shower for an hour and you'll still smell it. The workers in these plants make 4 cents an hour, less than the slaughterhouse workers, because apparently standing in a vat of liquefied animal parts for 12 hours is less valuable than cutting throats. They have the highest mortality rate of any industry in Chicago, not from accidents, from disease, from breathing air so toxic it destroys your lungs, from handling chemicals that eat through skin. The owners know this. The city knows this. Nobody does anything. Because who cares if a rendering plant worker dies? There's 10 guys waiting to take his place, fresh off the boat from Poland or Italy or Ireland, desperate enough to work for 4 cents an hour in a building that smells like death. The market provides. Here's a fun fact. In 1890, the life expectancy for a wealthy white man living on the Gold Coast is 63 years. For a Polish immigrant working in the stockyards, it's 32. That's not a typo. 32 years. Half. You live half as long because you were born in the wrong place to the wrong parents. The city health department knows these numbers. They publish reports with detailed demographic breakdowns. Their recommended solution: improved moral character and personal hygiene among the working classes. Not better housing, not sewage infrastructure, not labor protections, moral character. Just try being a better person and you'll stop dying of cholera. It's that simple. Let's talk about the children. The ones who survive past infancy anyway. They don't go to school, they work. 6-year-olds in factories, 8-year-olds in coal mines, 10-year-olds in meatpacking plants. It's legal, completely legal. No child labor laws, no age restrictions, no safety requirements, they're cheap labor. Smaller hands can reach into machinery, they don't complain as much, they don't organize unions. They lose fingers, they lose hands, they fall into machines and get crushed. They inhale coal dust and die of black lung at 16. The factories love them. Some reformers try to push child labor laws, try to get kids into schools instead of factories. The business community fights back hard. Their argument: idleness breeds immorality. Work builds character. What they mean: we make more money when we can pay 6-year-olds 3 cents an hour. The laws don't pass. The children keep working, and the factory owners keep getting richer. You want to know the sickest part? Chicago is proud of all this. The city boosters, the business leaders, the politicians, they look at this festering shithole and see achievement. They see the fastest growing city in America. They see industrial innovation. They see the future of capitalism. They literally cannot see the children dying of typhoid. Or they can see them, but they've decided it doesn't matter. It's hard to tell which is worse. The newspapers run stories about Chicago's greatness, about Armour and Swift and McCormick and all the other titans of industry, about the magnificent buildings going up downtown, about the trains and the telegraph lines and the electric lights. They don't run stories about the tenements, about the disease rates, about the workers dying in industrial accidents at a rate of 12 per day. That's not news. That's just business as usual. And the thing is, this isn't unique to Chicago. This is happening in every industrial city in America: New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Detroit. But Chicago does it bigger. More people, more filth, more death, more money. We're number one. The city keeps building. The millionaires keep building their mansions. The workers keep dying in the factories. The river keeps flowing backwards, carrying all our waste to someone else's doorstep. And we call it progress. We call it the American way. We call it the inevitable march of civilization. The rats know better. They see us for what we are, just another species making a mess and calling it an empire. And when we're gone, when our gleaming buildings collapse and our fortunes evaporate and our names are forgotten, the rats will still be here, eating our garbage, thriving in our waste, inheriting what's left.